Hello there, Ron Robinson here, and welcome to another episode of Tips and Tech Talk with Ron. Today we're talking with Bob DiTommaso. Today we're going to talk about is the difference between DSLR cameras. All cameras are not created equal, whether you're talking about an upgraded model or a different brand. I am a big fan of Canon. Bob uses Nikon, swears by the Nikon. So we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between not only the different brands, but also the different DSLRs. I remember when I first started doing videography, my first DSLR was the T3i, which now they have the T7i, which takes great video. And again, keep in mind that Bob and I, we have different needs when we're talking about a camera. He's primarily photography and I'm primarily video. So the video on the T3i, I'm very pleased with, 1080, 30 frames per second. And then I upgraded to the 5D Mark II, which obviously you can tell the difference between these two cameras in size. This, I think, when I first purchased it was like around $3,000. They've come out with the 5D Mark IV now.
Right.
And then my most recent purchase, and to be honest with you, the camera that really got me excited about photography again is the Canon 80D. I love this camera. Consistently, one of the best cameras out there for video is the camera you just bought for photography. Talk a little bit about your Nikon.
So this is a Nikon D850. It's a full frame camera, and it's Nikon's latest megapixel beast in the marketplace, 47 megapixels. I primarily will use this for landscape work, maybe some wedding work, but it's a day-to-day portrait camera, probably not. I don't need those giant files, although you can shoot a full RAW at 47 megapixels, a medium and a small RAW, so they now have expanded out into different size RAW files if you don't want all that size. But this camera is pretty exciting. I'm heading to Yosemite in less than 2 weeks, and this will be the camera that I take. But that's a landscape trip. That's when you want those giant megapixel counts to make big enlargements and such. Doing headshots for somebody, I don't need 47 megapixels unless they plan to put their picture on the side of Cobo Hall.
We're talking about Nikons as opposed to Canons. At the end of the day, for people who don't know, what would you say? It's just the shades of colors, isn't it? Or what is your?
I shot Canon for 8 years. I was very happy. I switched in 2008 because Nikon was the only one of the two of them offering a full frame camera that would still had the capability of speed behind it. So for sports and action photography, stuff like that, there was no question. Today, they're pretty much right back in tight competition. If someone took all my Nikon gear and replaced it with equivalent Canon gear, I could happily shoot after I got used to putting lenses on the opposite direction again.
And the reason people stay with Canon or stay with Nikon or even Sony or whatever is basically lenses, because even if you buy a different body, you could still use all those lenses, right?
Most of the time. Canon has a difference between their mounts. So if your 5D can take a full frame lens, but it can't take the crop sensor lenses that go on your new camera, for instance.
The 80D, right.
80D. In the Nikon world, they will let you put any lens on any camera body. And a lot of times it's probably not very helpful to do that, but they have cross-body compatibility. There's a lot of cameras within either brand that have very similar, they're both 22 to 24 megapixels. In a crop sensor body, they're packed in there much tighter. In a full frame body, they're spread out more. At the end of the day, I think the biggest determining factor is, like portrait wedding photographers want a full frame camera because the ability to blur that background is there. You can get more of a bokeh or an out of focus background with a full frame sensor than you can on a crop sensor.
So why would you use that lens as opposed to this lens?
The 50mm lens lets me shoot in low light. I don't have to turn up my ISO sensitivity and deal with graininess in the pictures and the resulting side effects of that. And it gives you a normal perspective, which is hard to describe, but basically the images look very much like the scenes look when we look through our eye. A lens like this tends to compress things down and does beautiful things to the background and everything. It gives you those out of focus backgrounds that we like for portrait work. But things don't look like they do to the naked eye. So this 50mm is a nice choice when you want to kind of render things out in a natural way.
Somebody might say, you know, that's great. Those cameras look very, very expensive and I'll never be able to afford something like that. But there are DSLRs affordable. Like I mentioned, the T3i, which is now the T7i, I think sells for like $700-800. It's kind of like an entry-level DSLR. What is Nikon's version of that?
Their entry-level camera is a 3000 series. I think they're up to a 3500 or 3600. I don't follow them real closely. And then the next step up after that is the 5000 series. I think they're at a 55 or 5700. So they're up there in the same price point. I mean, they're direct competitors. They're going to be within a few dollars of each other. One of the bigger considerations I point out to people when they're looking to get their first camera is a lot of camera kits come with two lenses, so an 18 to 55 and then say a 55 to 200 maybe. People don't like changing lenses, they don't like having to carry that second lens, so they find that they put one or the other on the camera, typically the 18 to 55, and that the other lens sits in the bag or sits at home and doesn't get used. So there are some kits out there that let you get the camera with the 18 to say 135. So not quite as much reach, but a lot more flexibility in one lens. So
that's what I like about this. This is 18 to 135, but I also have a 50mm and I have a 70 by 200mm, which I think covers me at every base, not just for video, but for photography. So there are a lot of different options. If you want to go like an entry level, I would recommend T7i for Canon. There's an equivalent for the Nikon. And then of course, if you want to go full frame, this is the 5D Mark II, but I think they're up to the 5D Mark IV right now. And again, this is a photography camera that shoots excellent video.
At the end of the day, I tell people, you know, I could take your 80D and go out and shoot the vast majority of what I shoot and be very happy with it. It's just a matter of getting used to whatever tool's in your hand. You know, it's some of them are maybe a little bit more fun, or a little bit, you know, higher end, but
it's what you do with it.
It's what you do with it, and it's getting to know whatever it is that you've got to work with. It's not going to work if you're fumbling around trying to figure out how to change things while the moment is passing you by. I've had people in classes with 10, 12-year-old cameras, and I say, what do you shoot? And they're like, I primarily hike and I take pictures outside. I'm like, that camera will last you forever, okay? When you start moving indoors, the lighting gets more difficult, and you're trying to photograph, you know, grandkids running around or your own children or whatever, that's where a 12-year-old camera is really going to have difficulty. You know, the newer technology, the increased ability to shoot in low light, that's when those kind of features pay off. Outside in strong sunlight, any DSLR is going to take a very nice photo.
So whether you're a fan of Canon, Nikon, Sony, whatever the case may be, do your due diligence, do your homework, find out what kind of camera is working best for you, and then purchase that camera. I hope you learned something today. Thanks for joining us. Tune in next week where I'll be talking about VR goggles and 360 video cameras. See you then.